Welcome to this explainer on HashiCorp Vault Trust Patterns. Look, if you're an engineer about to make a Vault deployment decision, or maybe you're reviewing someone else's architecture, this is a load-bearing discussion. We're going to cut straight to the chase and outline the exact trust architecture chosen for our project, completely bypassing all that generic best practice fluff to focus on a rigorous decision-shaping framework. Here's our agenda for today: the choice, the secret zero problem, 3 trust patterns, 6 dimensions of trust, why we chose pattern B, and finally, the final decision rule.
So we're starting with a definitive conclusion right up front. This project picked pattern B. That means in-place seal migration. We utilize one vault from start to finish, but with an evolving seal configuration over time. We aren't using 2 vaults graduating into each other, and we definitely aren't using an external KMS anchor. That choice was incredibly deliberate, and by the end of this explainer, you'll understand exactly why, and precisely when the other 2 options would have been the right answer instead.
Section 1. The secret zero problem. Resolving the bootstrap chicken and egg. To really understand our choice, we kind of have to revisit the foundational problem every single deployment faces: the bootstrap chicken and egg. You probably already know this secret zero concept. Vault can't issue secrets until it's up and running, but simply getting it running requires secrets, like unseal keys, TLS certs, and your first admin credential. Every single deployment picks a resolution pattern for this, either explicitly or by accident. And honestly, picking by accident is exactly how you end up with some temporary laptop bootstrap infrastructure permanently running in production a year and a half later. You've got to make an intentional choice. Section 2. 3 Vault Trust Patterns, exploring A, B, and C. Let's explicitly define the 3 structural ways to resolve this so you can actually make that intentional choice. We'll color code these to keep it clear. Let's start with pattern A in yellow, the bootstrap and graduate approach. You stand up a short-lived bootstrap vault to issue the credentials your production vault needs. Once prod takes over, the bootstrap is decommissioned. The massive appeal here is that your production vault is incredibly strict from day one. Permissive environments literally never touch your production data. But its fatal flaw: you still have to bootstrap the bootstrap vault. The chicken and egg just moves one level down. It works beautifully for cloud-native teams with intense CI discipline that guarantees that destruction, but without that, the temporary vault tends to just stick around forever. Moving over to pattern B, the blue column, and this is our chosen path. Pattern B keeps one continuous vault. Its identity from day one to end of life never changes. What actually evolves is its seal configuration, basically how it gets unsealed upon restart. The migration here happens in 2 very deliberate steps. In phase 1, you use a Shamir 3 of 5 manual unseal. It gives you maximum seal integrity, but maximum operational friction. So in phase 2, you introduce a second vault on a different host in transit-only mode, and the primary vault rekeys its seal. Now you've got an automated transit unseal using the official Vault Operator Unseal migrate path. What's brilliant here is those original Shamir keys are never destroyed. They're smartly retained for disaster recovery. You aren't burning your recovery path for convenience. Finally, we have pattern C in green, the external trust anchor. This gives you 0 operator unseal from the absolute jump. Vault automatically unseals via a permanent external anchor. Think AWS KMS, GCP KMS, Azure Key Vault, or a hardware HSM. It never graduates away. It's a beautifully clean architectural separation. The cost? Well, a KMS outage equals a Vault outage, and you are permanently coupled to whichever external KMS you happen to choose. Section 3. 6 dimensions of trust, the evaluation scorecard. Now, Trustic Vault isn't just a simple binary concept. We evaluate trust across a rigorous scorecard of 6 distinct technical vectors. Looking at seal integrity, pattern A is high in production, pattern B is high throughout, and C entirely depends on your KMS. But look at the audit trail. Pattern B easily wins here with 1 continuous unbroken log from day 0, whereas pattern A splits history across 2 vaults. For privilege tokens, pattern A is actually prone to failure because bootstrap credentials can easily bleed into CI logs during the transition. Now down at the bottom, single host failure. Pattern B is deliberately weak here. It's a single point of failure for vault data. For our setup, we explicitly accepted that trade-off on dimension 6 to avoid the disproportionate multi-node raft overhead, simply because pattern B is so incredibly strong on dimensions 1 through 5.
Section 4. Why we chose pattern B. Applying project constraints.
Let's look at exactly why pattern B was the indisputable winner for our specific project constraints. We were working with a very tight scale. We have just 1 to 2 daily operators owning the system. We have 5 trusted humans acting as Shamer custodians. Our compute fleet is exactly 2 DGX Spark boards. And most importantly, we have absolutely 0 cloud KMS available.
So why did the alternatives fail us? Well, pattern A was rejected because running a second vault just to bootstrap the first one merely shifts the problem. It doesn't reduce complexity on a self-hosted setup. Pattern C was rejected for an even simpler reason: we don't have a cloud KMS. Standing up a brand new self-hosted KMS from scratch just to unseal Vault costs vastly more in operational overhead than just running a second Vault in transit mode. So pattern B fit perfectly. One log our tiny team can actually read, Shamir for fleet establishment, and a documented Phase 2 migration for when those manual unseals inevitably become too painful.
Section 5, when alternatives are right. The pivot.
Now, pay close attention because this is the most load-bearing part of this entire explainer. Knowing exactly when pattern B is the wrong choice. Let's say you're operating on AWS, GCP, or Azure, and you already have a highly available cloud KMS paid for and configured. Or maybe your compliance regime like FedRAMP High or HIPAA strictly mandates external hardware key custody. In those scenarios, pattern C completely dominates. It is the undisputed home for cloud-native teams who need 0 operator unseal from day one. Pattern B would absolutely be the wrong choice there. Conversely, what if you have a massive, rotating engineering team? What if you have an audit regime that demands a hard, undeniable line proving that your production vault was never, ever touched by permissive bootstrap states? If you have the CI discipline to guarantee the destruction of that bootstrap vault, pattern A dominates. If your team scales past 10 operators, coordinating Shamir custodians under pattern B becomes a total nightmare, making pattern A's clean audit line incredibly attractive. Section 6, the final decision rule, 4 questions to architecture. You can really reduce this entire decision-shaping framework down to 4 sequential questions. 1. Do you have a cloud KMS? 2. Do you have a compliance mandate requiring hardware custody? 3. How big is your operator population? And 4. How many hosts are in your fleet? If you rigorously answer these, your pattern selection becomes almost purely mechanical. Like, if you have 5 or 6 hosts, multi-node Vault Raft justifies its overhead, pushing you toward pattern C. But if you only have 2 hosts, like us, you lean heavily toward pattern B. Ultimately, your goal is to map the specific pattern directly to your rigid constraints. You never want to hunt for a generic best practice, because best practices are entirely contextual. If you're operating pattern B, reference your operator runbooks, like G10, for that Phase 2 migration, and rely on your trust documents, like G11, to truly understand your security posture. So I'll leave you with this thought. Before you finalize your next deployment, honestly look at your architecture. Which pattern actually fits your system's specific constraints? And crucially, which alternatives will you explicitly document as rejected today to prevent your team from suffering endless operational drift tomorrow?